So we're actually right at the Mishnah. Oh, Menachos. The Unois, Shalosh, Meyois, Shifa, the Chamaish, Meyois Beita. So Shifa means you smear back and forth, you level off with your hand. The Gemara is going to have a discussion. The Mishnah is going to have a discussion if it's on the dough or if it's on the grain. And 500 beita, which is punching. So the Rashi Ksaviyat is either it's using a fist like this or using the bottom of the hand like this. Okay, shifa ubeita bechitin. Where do you do the shifa and the beita? That's when it's grain. Rabbi Yosy Omer bebatzek. He said, no, you did it. You do it by when it's in dough. Kol hamanachos bois eser eser. Now, we need to discuss. If you do it for the dough, I guess it works the dough good. Why would you do it on the chitin? The teretz is it loosens up the psoilus so that it'll be so the psoilus won't get mixed into the flour.
500 times why we need 500, 300, 500.
Remember, out of a nisar and psoilus, out of three ephah, they only had one nisar and psoilus. They were mamish purifying and purifying and purifying. It was very pure dough, pure flour.
Do this for each mincha, or are they
Yeah, for each mincha. Well, for the flour of each mincha.
You couldn't prepare it beforehand.
We're going to see soon that you could buy it this way. The Gemara is going to say that either you buy it this way and you bring it, or you could bring rechitim and let the gizbar hektish do it, let the tzibur do it. But then it's expensive, and we're the parak's going to end with chas. So Zok to Gemara, Rabbi Yosy Rabbi Batzei, Kol Menachos boys, Eser Eser. All Menachos have 10 breads. What about the Minchas Toilus, which doesn't have bread at all? The Teretz says after the Kemitah, the Shiraim has to be made into 10 breads. Chutz Milechem Aponim, the Chavite Kohen Gadol.
Once you eat the flour, you can't eat the flour?
That's what it seems like. Shehin boys, Shtei Mesrei. Let me look inside just to make sure that I didn't make a mistake. Let's see what it says over here. In the Ksaviyad Rashi, let me see. Chalosh umincha zogt the Rashi umincha soilas nami afagav the koidim afia nikmetes afilu achay eser chalos of delay. Okay, the Menachos siv the sal matzos. Chalosh matzos. I'm not sure what we're learning that from, but I'll call you see clearly the Ksaviyad Rashi says that even though koidim afinik metzes afilochi they made chalos, so the chalos must have been made out of the shirayim, not of the kemitza. You can't make 10 chalos out of a kemitza.
What's boys? It's not boys.
I hear the lashon is a little bit shverlich. I hear. Okay, zok to Gemara weiter, zok to Mishnah weiter. So the chavite kohen gadol also are 12, like the lechem apanim. Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi kulam boys shtei mesrei. Verkehrt. All the menachos you have 12 chalos. Chutz mechalos toida where the Torah says beferish 10. Unaziris shehem boys eser eser. And Naziris, which the Gemara is going to tell us that you learned from Toida. Tana we learned. How did you get the ratio of 200 to 300, 200 to 500? It was 300 to 500. So this is how they did it. Shaf achas bayit shtayim, shaf shtayim bayit shalish. So every set had 3 shifais and 5 beitais. So that's how it worked out. So that when they kept doing it over and over again, it reaches the share of 300 to 500. Boy Rabbi Yirmiyah, am tuye v'asuye chad, oidom am tuye v'asuye trey. So this is not related to the shifa. It's not related to the mita, but shifa when you go back and forth, is that 2 or is that 1? So Gemara teku. Shifa uveita bechitin. Rabbi Yosy Omer bebatzik. So clear to Gemara Ashayla. Yiboilu. The batzik v'loy bechin. When Rabbi Yosy said that the shiva and the bita is done by the batzik, does that mean only the batzik, but not by the chin? Or dilma afa batzik? Maybe Rabbi Yosy told you do shiva and bita twice. Tashma, the Tanya shifa ubeita bechitin. Rabbi Yosy Omer shifa ubeita bebatzik. Rabbi Yosy shifa ubeita is bebotzik. So the Rashi again tells us that Vibalt Rabbi Yosy here elaborates. He doesn't just say bebotzik. He says shifa will be eaten bebotzik. It means it's only bebotzik and not bechitin. Kol menachas boys eser, except for the chavitin and the lechem aponim that are 12. Lechem aponim we know is 12. It says beferish it's 12. Chavita kain gadol asher chuka milechem aponim. It's a gzeira shava. What's a gzeira shava? So if we look at the psukim, where do I have the psukim over here? Over here, the psukim. It says by the lechem aponim moisel ayin levanim v'chalu b'makom kodesh ki kodesh kodesh shemu loy meish Hashem chak olam. And by the Chavitin it says that Kohen Mashiach Tachtav Libanam Yasa Isa Chak Oilam Lashem Kol Taktor. This pasuk we should remember because we had the Kol Taktor and the Kol Tia, and we learned one from the other. Okay, that not only is there a lav to eat the Shemaim, it's also a mitzvah deraisa to be makter everything together. Zog the Heilige Gemara Vayter. Kol menachos, the boys eser minama. How do you know that all menachos are 10? Zok to Gemara, Gomar milach meitoida. It's a binyanav from lach meitoida. By lach meitoida, the Torah says beferish 10. Ma lahalon eser afkan eser. For Gemara, mehechet eser to learn it out of lach meitoida. Maybe you learn it out of lechem aponim and say ma lahalon shtei mesrei afkan shtei mesrei. Zok to Gemara, we have 6 reasons to compare it. There's 6 similarities between the standard mincha and lachmei toida. Bilachmei toida havel elamelef shekain yochid. It's a carbon of a yochid, unlike the lechem aponim, which is the carbon of the rabbim. Hamis nadav, you give it as an adova. It's not a mandatory carbon like the lechem aponim. Shemen, the lechem aponim does not have shemen, but a standard mincha as well as the lachmei toida has shemen. Nivsal means that it could become possible belina, but we know that the lechem aponim doesn't become possible belina. It sits there a whole week. Shaloi b'Shabbos, it's not doich Shabbos. A toida and the mincha is not doich Shabbos, but the lechem aponim is. And b'shaloi b'tuma, they're not doich tuma. Tuma hutra b'tzibur, which is a lechem aponim carbon. So we have 6 similarities. Zoktamar adirabba milechem aponim havel lemelef. There are similarities between the mincha and the lechem aponim that the toida doesn't have. Shekein hektish, they're both kodesh kodshim, while the toida is only kodshim kalim. Ulavoina, they both need lavoina, but the toida does not need lavoina. Matzah, they're made exclusively out of matzah, but the toida is also chometz, as one set of bread is chometz. The etzem, they all are a standalone carbon, but by the toida, the breads are only an accessory to the behema. So you have 4 similarities. Zaktamar, but Hanach Levishon, there are more similarities from the mincha, the standard mincha, to the taida than there is from the standard mincha to the lechem aponim. Zakta Gemara, there happens to be a machloikis that we learned in Mesechus Vachim. When it comes to kochim, that if you have a davar that you learn from Gzeira Shava, so let's say B imported a halacha from A using a Gzeira Shava, right? Can be export that halacha to other halachas to see through a memetzinu, through a binyanav. So the isvir law that davar lamed gzeira shava chayzer umalamed bebinyanav. Well, then the question is neilef mechavite kohen gadol. How do we know that chavite kohen gadol is 12? Because it's a chayk, it's a gzeira shava from lechem aponim, right? So maybe we should be able to learn a binyanav from Chavita Kohen Gadol to all menachos. That menachos should require 12. Mal alon shtei mesrei, afkan shtei mesrei. Zok to Gemara, mistavra. It's mistaver.
In that case, you wouldn't learn it from Lachmei Toida, in other words.
Correct. Learn it from Chavita Kohen instead of Lachmei Toida. Well, why make a binyanav from lachmei toida? Make a binyanav from chavite kohen. Mal alon shtei mesrei, afkan shtei mesrei. So to mistavim and lachmei toida havel elamelef, because there's many similarities between mincha and lachmei toida that are not shared by the chavitin, such as shekain hedjit. First of all, they're both a hedjit. Mashenkin the chavitin is is not by Hedjit. It's from the Kohen. Shehisnade, they're both on the Dova. Mashenka the Chavitin, which is a Chiyuv. Chatzoyin, the Chavitin is brought in two halves, half a Boiker and half Ba'erev. While the Toida and the Mincha, the whole Mincha is brought together. Lepigel. We learned there's a halacha by Pigel, only if there's a Dover HaMatir and a Dover HaNitar, does a Dover HaNitar become Pigel, right? But what if there's no Dover Matter like the Mincha V'Koyin, where it's Kulai Kolil, there's no Matter Niter, it cannot become possible als Pigel. And Shaloi B'Shabbos for Shaloi B'Tumah. A Toida and the Mincha you don't bring B'Shabbos, you don't bring B'Tumah, but the Chavitin is brought every day. Zok Gemara. So how many similarities do we have? We have Hedjit, Nstadiv, Chatzoyin, Pigol, Shaloi B'Shabbos, Shaloi. We have six. Fek Ba'adam Chavita Kohen Gadol Havel Melev Shekain Yisarin. The Chavita Kohen Gadol is an Yisarin. A Mincha is Yisarin. A Toida is multiple Yisraelis. Kli. They both become Kodesh B'Kli, but the Toida only becomes Kodesh B'Shchita. When the animals are shechted, then the Lachmi Toida become Kodesh Zaguf. Hektish, they're Kodesh Kodeshim, while the Toida is Kodeshim Kalim. Ulavoina, they require Lavoina, the Toida does not. And Matzah, they're only made out of Matzah, the Toida is made out of Chometz as well. The Etzem, it's not an accessory to a carbon like the Toida is. Hagosha, side the Chavitin, side the Mincha needs Hagosha, the Toida doesn't. The Ishim, part of the Mincha itself is put on the Mizbeach, but no Lachmei Toida on the Mizbeach. V'hanin efficient. So there's actually more similarities to Chavitin there is to Toida. So maybe by all Menachos it should be 12. But this Shita holds that it's better to learn Hedjit and not Hedjit from a Kohen. Remember, Kulan Doi Shtei Mesrei. Remember, there's Pukvakert. All the Melachas are Shtei Mesrei. So one of the reasons could be is because he learns it from Chavitin. My Kosover, the Gemara wants to know what does Meir hold? What's the Makar of 12? Either Isfir like the Dover Alamed Bigzer Shava, Chayjur Alamed Binav, Yalef Mechaviti the Koy Gadol, the Hanin Efficient, like we just said. But what if you hold you can't do that? Isfir like the Dover Alamed Bigzer Shava, Ine Chayjur Alamed Binav, that Yalef Milechem upon him, you can learn from Lechem upon him, because Hektish, Odiflei, Lechem upon him, and Mincha are Kodesh Kodeshim. Sorry, Yalef Lechem upon him is 12, right? So who adin all the Menachos would be 12, because Hektish Odiflei, meaning they're both Kochim, unlike the Toida, which is Kochim Kalam. So there's two Aifanim with which you could learn all the Menachos require 12. Sorry? Right, I told you it's Kachim Kalim. And therefore we're going to learn Menachos not from Toida, but we're going to learn Menachos from Lechem Aponim, which is here the Kachim. Chut milachmi Toida uniziris shehein boyis eser. Right, Rameir holds that the lachmi Toida, no matter what, and the ziris are eser. Lachmi Toida, Pashit, Vedik Zibu. The Ziris is a limit from Lachmei Toida. Domamar, it says al Zabach Toidash Shalomov, Loshem Rabim, L'Rabbi Shalmi Nazir, that also brings 10 lachomim. Amar Ab Tovi Bar Kisna. Interesting halacha. Amar Ab Tovi Bar Amar Shmuel, the name of Shmuel. V'hikar din Lachmei Toida needs to have 40 breads, 30 of matzah, 10 of chametz. Well, what if they pulled the Yaakov's pillow stunt? What's the Yaakov's pillow stunt? All the rocks got together to say Allah Yudiyach Tzadik is Roshai. So Lachmei Toida sha'afon arba chalas. What if instead of making 10 chalas, you made one big challah? So now you have 4 big chalas, 3 of matzah and 1 of chametz. Would that be kosher? Zok Shmuel Yotza. Frank Gemara, I the Torah says you need 40. Zok Gemara lemitzvah. Frank Gemara, but for boyu afrushay truma minayu. You have to take 1 off of each 10 and give it to the kohen. You cut off a piece. You're not allowed to have a broken piece. It has to be a complete zach. So it must be there. You would be mafresh belisha, meaning you're not really making 4. You're making 8. 4 big ones and 4 little ones that you're giving to the kohen. May say effect Gemara. So we just brought from Shmuel.
Connected.
I hear. So we just brought from Shmuel that you could go with one. The way we know it, it's a good. The way we know it. We learned from Trumas Meiser. We learned from Trumas Meiser. Sorry?
That's to be a tenth.
Correct. Yeah. Zog to Gemara, Meisvei. Kol ha-menachos sheriba b'midas chalason, oy shemiyat b'midas chalason. Kseiros chutz milechem aponim, v'chavita koy gadol, v'lachmei toida, u'naziris. So you see a brisa that's mufurish connected, which Shmuel said, because it says first lachmei toida, you can't be marbi, you can't be mamayit. That's why Nechanami, it's a machlok tanoim. Hu Amar Shmuel's halacha is ki tana. We're going to quote now a machlokes whether or not by the lachmei toida you can go with less. The Tanya we learned kol ha-menachos sheriba b'midas chalason l'shamit b'midas chalason kseiros chutz milechem aponim v'chavitei kohen gadol. This fits perfectly with Shmuel because it says, but by lachmei toida there wouldn't be a problem. It's only a problem by lechem aponim v'chavitei kohen gadol. The Yeshayim hold on like that. Af lachmei toida naziris should not be marba b'mayit. So Shmuel all at the Tanakama. Amar Avuna, Michas Mafe Tanner. The Michas Mafe, so we know either it's 10 Rikikin or 10 Chalas, or according to Reb Shimon, it could be 5 and 5. So Sha'afa Chala Achas. Instead of making 10 Chalas, you made one big Chala. Yotza, you're going to be Yosy. My timer, Matzois Ksiv, it says Matzois plural, that's the Kri, but the Ksiv is without a Vov. So we learn from there that even Matzas, even one. Correct, your papa, Maskal or a papa, time or the Chsiv Matzasa, you tell me that when a Svar alone you can't say it. Only if the Torah's Maram is that. Haksiv Matzois, loy. Iva Gabilach, my Torah, the Chsiv Matzois, and Shmuel just told us, Vomer of Tubi Vakisna, Amar Shmuel, Lach, my Torah, Shofin, Arba Chalas Yotza. So that's my Nechanami, Haiplika. He holds, Shmuel holds, you don't need a positive to be Maram is that. When a Svar you can have one big Chala. But the Rafuna says you need a positive for it. Not a lot to argue. Dr. Helik Gemara weiter. They had to purify so much that from 3 soyin of grain they only netted 1 yisorin of flour. Shtei alechem, shtei asroinim. They had to purify, but obviously not as much, because they were able to get his turn out of only 2 son. No, Shtei Yisrael Mishal Son. Forget, they were able to get 2 from the 3 side. And Lechem upon him is the least purification, because Esrim Varbe Esroinim, Esrim Varbe Son, you were able to get 1 per son. Zok my time. Why is it that Epista Oimer needed so much extra purification? Because the amount of soil you need is the same. It's just a question of how many grain you got to start with. Kivin the mechodesh. First of all, it's mechodesh, and normally as the grain gets older and it dries out, the shells fall off. But this is fresh, so it has shell. It has a lot of psilus into it. So the ratio of pure flour to its psilus is very low. So mainly you need a lot more to be able to get your psilus out of it. And umisari nasi, which in general has a lot of psilus. So therefore, isarin much for loyasi. Ela mishalosh sayin. Shtei alechem, shtei asronis mishalosh sayin. Why is that? Because it's made out of chitin. Kivin the mechitin asyon, afagav the mechodesh asyon, shtei asronis also mishalosh sayin, because a wheat kernel has less psilus in it. So therefore, more of it is turns into pure psilus. The lechem aponim is esrim v'arba asronis me'esrim v'arba sayin my taima. You could use old tvua to make the lechem upon them, which is already dried out, which means a lot of its psilus has already fallen away. Therefore, asu yisar and mufchar asu misa. V'yashin asu kama yisar and mufchar asu misa. Taner about it. You have to have exactly the yisar of psilus. If you have too much, then when you take the kmitza, that the kmitza is not fully for the mincha. There's another part of it, so it'll be possible. And if you have less, then a mincha kser is automatically possible. But riba b'mida soyin shalahen If you brought a lot of extra grain, that's not a problem, as long as you only use the Nisaron of Silas. Zok Telik Mishnah weiter. Ha'omer Hayom Nupa B'shloish Esrei Napa. They used 13 sifters when they were sifting the flour of the Omer. Shtei Lechem B'shtay Mesrei. And as we know, the Shtei Lechem requires less of a purification because it's made out of chitin. V'lechem upon the B'yud Aleph.
You only down to 12 instead of 13. It should be a bigger ratio, no?
Why?
Because here you start with.
No, we're talking about how many sifters you need to get there.
Right, but we're saying
so you need less sifters because you do less sifting. For the chita, you do less sifting, so it makes sense. You should need less sifters.
Yeah, but you should even much less. You should even more.
Oh, you mean the ratio should be much less? I hear.
Here you went down from 3 to 1 to 2 to 1.
So vice the choice is not a linear graph. Vice the choice, maybe once you get the more soilers, you need more sifters. That's a good horror. Rabbi Shimon Aimer, loy hayla kitzva, v'os haksta trying with sifters. All we care about is the final product. And l'soilers v'nupa kol tzarch hayamevi. Shedemar v'lakachta soilers v'afisa isa ache tehei menupa kol tzarch. Tanu Rabbanan.
Remember one thing: when they come to soilers, it's not like this. It's not the same sifting that you do at home. Because when you do at home, you want you sift up, you sift, and the flour goes down, and the schmutz blabs oil.
Right.
This do anapam takab. You see it.
That's exactly what the Gemara is going to be masber now. It's exactly what the Gemara is going to be masber, and we'll learn the Rashi inside. Tanu Rabbanan. Bedaka, begasa, bedaka, begasa. So that's how you do it. The 13 are daka, gasa, daka, gasa. So you might ask, if I did already daka, what do I need gasa for? Right? So the Xavier, there's two different shots in Babylon. The Xavier Rashi explains how it's done. Again, I don't have a clear understanding. I don't understand sifting, but this is what he says. Bedaka, begasa. Can you see the Rashi?
Yeah.
I'm going to try to make it a little bit bigger for me to be able to see it. Bedaka, begasa, zogt Rashi. Betchila minape daka. Why? Shemoitzi avak dak beinini shein lovin kolkach. We want to get rid of the dust that's not even part of the soilers. So here, like B'chaim said, we're keeping what stays on top of the sifter, not what gets through the sifter. The achach begasa. Then they take this grain after the dust fell off of it, and they put it into a gasa with bigger holes, because that will be moitzia soilas v'kolet esubin. That will allow the grain to fall down, the pure grain, and hold back the soilas. Then v'chayzer u'menapa soilas bedaka achroina, another daka, but shehidaka min agasa. It has smaller holes than the gasa that he just put it through, but v'loy bedaka rishoina. But it's not as small as the first; it's a little bit bigger. Ela b'daka achroina shigasa min adaka rishoina. Shazu moitzia avak oid. This will allow more bigger pieces of dust to fall out that are not part of the soilus. Masha lo yitzia rishoina.
Also der erste nimmt aus Schmutz, mamisch der zweite nimmt aus it's not when we touch fine meal, meint es nicht, also that fine sugar, the confection sugar, bei Jens ist nicht geht. Confection von dem, so the grobe gitte meal, dus myself kemach is more powdery, but it's not quality.
I hear. The achach benapa, so it goes backwards. So basically, on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 has the smallest holes, 10 has the biggest holes. So first you do 1 and 10, then you do 2 and 9, then you do 3 and 8, and each time, when you're using the thin stuff, you want what remains. When you're using the gasa, you want what falls through. So the siftings have different purposes, and when you go through all these tests, then you get it. So Chaim is telling me something very good, which now explains it a little better. Because if I just want fine, so they just use a fine thing. You're saying we don't want fine, we also are selective what we want to be part of that soilless mix. So the way to get the best soilless quality mix is not just that it should be finely ground. It has to also be very careful with the content, and the way you get the right content, exactly the part of the grain that you want, you have to do this method. It now makes much more sense to me. Just put it through a thin sifter.
En später noch die Schicht wasen en Berghaus hast du dieselbe Sache.
Wie?
Berghaus ist
Berghaus.
viel.
Okay, sagt die Gemara weiter. Sagt die Gemara weiter. Ah, das ist gleich. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Shloish Esrei. I'm sure Eli Tzvans is going to have a very good video on it.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll watch it if I find it.
Everyone doesn't get white.
Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Shloish Esrei Napois Hayu b'Mikdash Zula Ma'ila Mizu. Zula Ma'ila Mizu. He held you just went straight down. You go with the gasa and you go slower and slower until you get to the dock at the bottom. Zula Ma'ila Mizu. Oh, Yoina collect the Subin. Tachtoino collect the Silas. And the Gedic Sayyid Rashi says, why don't you go straight to the small one? The teretz is because then it's going to get plugged up. The holes are going to get plugged up with schmutz. So first you have thicker holes to get rid of the schmutz so that it doesn't plug up the holes of the really fine ones. Reb Shimon Omer, loy hayo lahen kitzva. Tanu Rabbanon, it says in the pasuk, soilas vafisa. You don't have to do all this work. You could just go to a merchant to buy soilas. And that costs a lot more money than doing it by yourself. How do you know that you could bring chitin? And this is talking about the lechem upon him. How do you could bring chitin and let the gizbar do it? So it's much cheaper. So this is talking about the tzibur. A yochid has to bring soilas to the Beis Hamikdash. He can't give it to the gizbar to grind. But for the lechem upon him, which is communal, you could bring him chitin and let the gizbar brech cup in doing the sifting. Talmud Leimer oisa dafkud lechem upon him mepnei achisaron. My mepnei achisaron. Amar Belazar HaTorah chas al ma'ayin Yishol Yisrael. The Torah doesn't want that. The Rosh doesn't want that the Beis Hamikdash, the communal mom and hektish, should go and spend huge money on the most expensive flour, buy it in grain form, and make it yourself. Hey,
Why do you say chesaron? It says chesachon.
but they have to look at the gears. It changes it. It changes the gears.
Can that well chas? Nicht.
Yeah, there's different gears. The Rashi says that Chisachain, Hegel accounts of Lechem upon him, but there's also Chisachain. There's different gears. But the thing it means is that the Torah doesn't want us to spend so much money.
Das meint chesachon. Chas.
Hecher Misa, what he says, it says Veshkisos Eidov Espiram. By the Mei Riva, they got water not just for themselves but for their animals as well. Why? Because the Rebbeinu Shalom didn't want their animals to die. The Rebbeinu Shalom was chas al mamayim. So some of the Rishonim ask, why didn't the Gemara bring from a Nigebatim where the Kohen instructs the Baal to take his stuff out first? I didn't see a teretz, but I'm sure Chaim has a teretz. Because Nigebatim would have been a right as well.
Wenn sie geschehen, wenn Philipp so hat ich kann stehen, du zwei Psyche mit der Teil. Eins sei Puder Masham Dover. Ja?
Right.
Und eins ist Hayat Hashem Tikze.
Right.
So, es Menschen sagen das auch mal der Hayat Hashem Tikze. Aber wie steht Hayat Hashem Tikze? Der Moshe hat gewollt, wenn die sind, kommen complain. Und später ist der rausgekommen nicht geht. And I put him a shamdova kimt fence is not a rausgekommen. So du auch die wissen reden von Negabatim, was man redet wenn die gerade geworden nicht was.
Okay, very good. I like that shot. I was thinking differently. This is a practical zach. They're going to die. Hashem got them water. But Negabatim, if the Abish was chos, the Abish didn't have to make a tummy.
Didn't make tummy?
The Abish could make the surface. It's not tummy. So this is more practice. I like Shipsha better. Baruch Hashem, we were zeichen to finish the 7th paragraph. Menachos, b'neder hadin alach elam menachos to k'masais, b'neder hadin alach elam menachos to k'masais, b'neder hadin alach elam k'masais. Let's start the next Mishnah, even though we're going to have to do it tomorrow, but I like getting on to Amar Aleph. Hatayda haisabah, chamesh soin Yerushalmiyos, saying seish midbariyos. So what they did is in the midbar, they had something called a saw. What they did in Yerushalayim is they wanted to make bigger shiurim. So what was called 6 sa'in in the midbar, in Yerushalayim we only called it 5. So basically we increased the size of each saw by 20%. Shtei ephos, which also adds up to 2 ephos. And the epha is shalosh sa'in. So 6 sa'in of midbariyos is 2 ephos. I guess it would be. I guess it would be 3 ephos. I'm sorry, it would be 2 ephos because each ephos shalosh sayim. I guess 5 Yerushalmiyos will be 2 ephos as well. Now, this is how it worked. Esrim Isarin. An ephah is 10 Isarin. So if you have 2 ephahs, I have 20 Isarinis. Now we're talking here about the carbon toita. There were 40 breads, 30 of matzah and 10 of chametz. So how much of flour did they use to make each one of these challahs? So Zok the Mishnah, Asar lechametz, 10, which is half of the flour, was dedicated just for the 10 breads that were made from chametz, which would mean if it's 10 Yisraelim, it's 1 Yisarin per bread, right? And then Vasar lematzah, they had 10 Yisraelim of flour for 30 breads that were made out of matzah. So naturally, the breads were much smaller. Zok the Mishnah. Isarin lechametz, Isarin lechala. The 10 Yisroinos that were for the chametz sticker breads worked out to 1 Yisroin for each challah. And Vasar lematzah, but there were only 10 Yisroinim for all of the 30 matzahs. So the matzah shalosh sheminim, chalosh rikikin revucha, which means there's 30 breads altogether. So what's 10 divided by 30? Nimsu shloisha Yisroinim shlish l'chol minumin. So we'll break it down slowly. First, we'll divide the 10 into 3. So that's 3 and a third. So every 10 chalas were made out of 3 and a third. So if you divide that, you'll get ushalosh chalos liyisaron. It's going to work out that each challah is 1/3 of a isarin. Now, uvamida Yerushalmi, if you want to measure on the scale of Yerushalayim, how you shloishim kav. Instead of saying there were 20 Yisraelis, we'll say there were 30 kav of flour. I guess in Yerushalayim they measured in kav. They had a different set of measurements. It's like it's like the metric system versus the English system. So chamisha asar lechametz, chamisha asar lemata, chamisha asar lechametz would be kav umechta lechala, and chamisha asar lemata umemata shalosh minin. So come to realize there will be 5 kav for each of the minin. Chalosh v'kikin revucha nimzu chameshes kav in the chal minumin ushtei chalas lekav. This way, out of a kav, if there's 5 kav and 10 chalas, so it's obviously 2 chalas per kav.
Sechs Kav is ein Sohn, ne?
A kav is vav beim. You ask kelav yigudu. A kav is dalet lug. A kav is dalet lug, and the lug is vav beim. Ke'as kelav asa. Ke'as kelav yigudu is vav. Asa is vav lug. I have to write it out. You know what ke'as kelav yigudu is? You know what ke'as kelav yigudu is? Ke'as kelav yigudu is the
Simon per.
You rip it, and then shiur become very, very easy. If you write the word ka'askalav, which is kur, efa, sa, kav, lug, beya. So ka'askalav, chaf, aleph, samach, kuf, lamed, beis. That's 6 words. Yegudu is 4 letters. So in between the kur and the efa, Ka'ah is a yud. A kor is 10 ephah. An ephah is gimel kav. Is gimel saw. A saw, then you go vav. A saw is vav kav. And kav. It's hard for me to
See it in front of you.
You see in front of you. It's very easy. Then you know the full conversion, and then you never have a problem with shiurim again. So I saw this in the Mishabura Askalav Gudu. I added myself the Chaf and the Yud.